The old wooden fence post split with a sharp crack as Alex Carter hammered it into the muddy ground. Rain had been falling for 3 days straight, turning his small farm into a muddy mess. He wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at the dark clouds rolling overhead. Another storm was coming, and he still had 20 more fence posts to replace before nightfall. Alex lived alone on 40 acres of farmland in rural Montana. He grew corn, raised a few chickens, and fixed things that broke. It was a simple life, but he liked it that way. No traffic, no crowds, no people telling him what to do. Just him, his land, and the endless sky above. Lightning flashed across the dark sky, followed by a deep rumble of thunder. The storm was getting closer. Alex gathered his tools and jogged toward the red barn where he kept his truck. As he reached for the barn door handle, he heard something strange. A soft whimpering sound like a hurt animal. He stopped and listened. The wind howled through the trees, but there it was again. A weak cry coming from behind the barn. Alex grabbed his flashlight from the truck and walked around to the back of the building. He pointed the beam of light into the tall grass and weeds. At first, he saw nothing. Then something moved near an old pile of rotting wood. Alex stepped closer and froze. There, curled up in a ball, was a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. It was small, about the size of a house cat, but covered in dark scales that seemed to shimmer in the flashlight beam. The creature had tiny wings folded against its back and golden eyes that looked up at him with pain and fear. Alex knelt down slowly, not wanting to scare the animal. It looked hurt. One wing was bent at an odd angle, and there were scratches along its side. The creature made another soft whimpering sound and tried to crawl away, but it was too weak to move far. "Easy there, little guy," Alex said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." He had no idea what kind of animal this was. Maybe some rare lizard that had escaped from a zoo? Or perhaps it was a new species that scientists had never seen before. Whatever it was, it needed help, and Alex couldn't just leave it out in the storm. He pulled off his jacket and carefully wrapped it around the creature. It didn't fight him, which meant it was either too weak or too scared to resist. As he lifted it, he noticed how light it was and how warm. The scales felt smooth under his hands, almost like polished stone. Alex carried the creature into his farmhouse and laid it on an old blanket near the fireplace. He started a fire to warm the room, then knelt down to get a better look at his unexpected guest. In the firelight, the creature's scales seemed to change color, shifting from deep black to dark purple to midnight blue. The golden eyes watched his every move. There was something intelligent about those eyes, something that made Alex think this was no ordinary animal. He had raised dogs, cats, and farm animals his whole life, but he had never seen eyes like these. They seemed almost human in their awareness. "You're hurt pretty bad, aren't you?" Alex said, examining the bent wing. "Let me see what I can do." He went to his kitchen and found some warm milk and honey. He also grabbed his first aid kit and a small towel. When he returned to the fireplace, the creature had lifted its head and was watching him with curious eyes. Alex dipped his finger in the warm milk and held it near the creature's mouth. At first it pulled back, but then its tiny tongue darted out to taste the liquid. Apparently deciding it was safe, the creature began to lick the milk from Alex's finger with enthusiasm. "That's it," Alex encouraged. "You need to get your strength back." While the creature drank, Alex gently cleaned the scratches on its side with a damp cloth. The wounds weren't deep, but they needed to be kept clean. As for the wing, he could see that it wasn't broken, just bent. He carefully straightened it and was amazed when the creature seemed to sigh with relief. Over the next few hours, Alex stayed by the fireplace, making sure his patient was comfortable. He brought more milk and later tried some scrambled eggs, which the creature ate eagerly. It seemed to be getting stronger by the hour. As the night wore on, something strange began to happen. The fire in the fireplace started burning differently. Instead of the usual orange and red flames, there were hints of blue and green. The temperature in the room became perfectly comfortable, not too hot or too cold. And the plants that Alex kept on his windowsill began to look greener and healthier, as if they were growing faster than normal. Alex noticed these changes, but figured he was just tired. It had been a long day, and finding a mysterious creature in his backyard was enough to make anyone imagine things. Around midnight, the creature finally fell asleep, curled up on the blanket with its tiny wings tucked against its body. Alex watched. It breathed steadily and felt satisfied that he had done the right thing. Whatever this animal was, it would be safe and warm until morning. He decided to call it Ember because of the way its scales seemed to glow in the firelight. Tomorrow he would figure out what to do next, maybe call the local veterinarian or contact the university to see if they knew what kind of animal it was. As Alex headed upstairs to his bedroom, he looked back at the sleeping creature. Ember's golden eyes opened for a moment and seemed to look directly at him. For just an instant, Alex could have sworn he saw something like gratitude in those eyes. Then they closed again, and the creature went back to sleep. Outside, the storm had passed and stars were beginning to appear through breaks in the clouds. Alex went to bed thinking he had simply rescued an injured animal. He had no idea that he had just saved the life of a being whose family commanded the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. He had no idea that his simple act of kindness would soon bring visitors to his small farm that would change the course of human history. All he knew was that he had found something special, something that needed his help. And Alex Carter had never been the kind of man to turn his back on a creature in need, no matter how strange or mysterious it might be. Sunlight streaming through the kitchen window woke Alex from his deep sleep. He had dreamed of flying through star-filled skies and hearing voices speaking in a language made of music and fire. When he opened his eyes, it took him a moment to remember why he felt so excited to get downstairs. Ember, the creature he had found last night. Alex threw on his clothes and hurried down to the living room. The fireplace was cold now, but the blanket where he had left the injured animal was warm to the touch. He looked around the room and found Ember sitting by the big window that faced the sunrise. The creature was noticeably larger than it had been the night before. "Well, hello there," Alex said softly. Ember turned toward him, and Alex was struck again by how intelligent those golden eyes appeared. The creature was now about the size of a small dog, and its scales seemed brighter in the morning light. The bent wing had healed completely, and there were no signs of the scratches from the previous night. Alex knelt down and offered his hand. Ember sniffed it, then pressed its head against Alex's palm, making a sound that was somewhere between a purr and a musical note. The touch sent a strange warmth up Alex's arm, and for just a moment he felt completely at peace. "You're feeling better, aren't you?" Alex said, gently scratching behind what he assumed were Ember's ears. The creature leaned into the touch and made that musical purring sound again. Alex went to the kitchen to make breakfast, and Ember followed him, walking with graceful steps that seemed almost like dancing. When Alex opened the refrigerator, Ember stood on its hind legs to look inside, tilting its head with curiosity. "What do you want to eat this morning?" Alex asked. To his surprise, Ember walked over to the cabinet where Alex kept his canned goods and tapped it with one small claw. Alex opened the cabinet, and Ember immediately pointed at a can of tuna fish. "You want tuna?" Alex asked. Ember nodded. Actually nodded like a person would. Alex opened the can and put it on a plate. Ember ate delicately, using its claws like tiny fingers to pick up pieces of fish. When it was finished, it looked up at Alex and made a sound that clearly meant, "Thank you. This was no ordinary animal." Alex was sure of that now. After breakfast, Alex decided to do his regular farm work and see how Ember reacted to being outside. The moment they stepped onto the porch, something extraordinary happened. The plants in Alex's vegetable garden, which had been struggling in the recent cold weather, suddenly looked healthier and more vibrant. The tomato plants stood straighter. The corn stalks grew taller before his eyes, and flowers bloomed that had no business blooming this early in the season. Ember walked through the garden, and wherever it stepped, the plants seemed to respond, with new growth and vitality. Alex watched in amazement as his struggling crops transformed into the healthiest garden he had ever seen. "How are you doing that?" he asked. Ember looked up at him and made a series of sounds that almost seemed like words in a foreign language. Then the creature did something that made Alex's heart skip a beat. It opened its mouth and breathed out a small puff of what looked like black flame. But this wasn't regular fire. The dark flame didn't burn anything it touched. Instead, it seemed to change things. when the flame touched a withered apple tree. At the edge of the garden, the tree immediately sprouted new leaves and began growing small apples. Alex sat down hard on his porch steps. "What are you?" he whispered. Ember walked over to him and climbed onto his lap, settling there like a cat. It looked directly into Alex's eyes and made soft, musical sounds that somehow conveyed comfort and friendship. Alex felt his fear melting away. Whatever Ember was, it meant him no harm. The rest of the morning passed peacefully, with Alex doing his chores and Ember following him around the farm. The creature seemed fascinated by everything Alex did, from feeding the chickens to checking the fence posts. It watched with intense concentration, as if it were studying human behavior. Around noon, Alex noticed something odd. His truck's radio, which had been broken for months, was suddenly working perfectly. Not only that, but it was picking up stations from hundreds of miles away with crystal-clear reception. His cell phone, which usually had no signal out on the farm, showed full bars and was receiving messages from friends he hadn't heard from in years. That afternoon, things got even stranger. A black SUV with government license plates drove slowly past Alex's property 3 times. The third time it stopped, and a woman in a dark suit got out. She walked up to Alex's front gate but didn't come any closer. "Excuse me, sir," she called. "Out." "I'm Agent Roberts with the Department of Agriculture. We've had reports of unusual animal activity in this area. Have you noticed anything out of the ordinary?" Alex looked down at Ember, who was sitting behind the porch railing where the agent couldn't see it. The creature's golden eyes were wide with what looked like worry. "No," Alex called back. "Just the usual farm animals. Why? Is there some kind of disease going around?" "Nothing like that," Agent Roberts replied. "Just routine monitoring. If you do see anything unusual, please call this number." She placed a business card on his mailbox and drove away. After the SUV disappeared down the road, Alex picked up the business card. It wasn't from the Department of Agriculture. It was from something called the Unusual Phenomena Investigation Unit. That evening, Alex sat on his porch with Ember in his lap, watching the sunset. The creature had grown again during the day and was now the size of a medium dog. Its scales seemed to absorb the dying light and reflect it back in colors that had no names. "They're looking for you, aren't they?" Alex said quietly. Ember made a low, worried sound and pressed closer to him. "Don't worry," Alex said, stroking the creature's scales. "I won't let anyone hurt you." As if in response to his words, Ember lifted its head and breathed another puff of black flame into the evening air. This time, the flame formed shapes that looked almost like symbols or letters from an alphabet Alex had never seen. The symbols hung in the air for a moment, glowing softly, before fading away. Alex had the strangest feeling that Ember was trying to tell him something important, something about where it had come from and why it was here. But he couldn't understand the message. What he did understand was that his simple life as a farmer was about to become much more complicated. He also understood that Ember trusted him, and that trust was precious beyond anything he had ever experienced. As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Alex made a decision. Whatever Ember was, wherever it had come from, he would protect it. The creature had brought magic and wonder into his ordinary life, and he wasn't going to let anyone take that away. High above them, so high that Alex couldn't see them, 3 small objects moved across the night sky, scanning the Earth's surface with invisible beams of light. They had detected the energy signature they were looking for, and now they knew exactly where to find what they had lost. The search was almost over. The smell of bacon frying filled Alex's kitchen as he prepared breakfast for himself and his unusual companion. Ember had grown overnight again and was now the size of a large dog. The creature sat by the window, watching the morning sky with an intensity that made Alex nervous. "See something interesting out there?" Alex asked, cracking eggs into a hot pan. Ember turned toward him and made a series of musical sounds that were becoming more complex each day. Sometimes Alex almost felt like he understood what the creature was trying to say, but the meaning always slipped away just as he thought he grasped it. Alex had been thinking all night about Agent Roberts and her questions. More government vehicles, had passed by his farm yesterday, and he had spotted what looked like surveillance equipment on the hill overlooking his property. Someone was definitely watching them. He put a plate of scrambled eggs and bacon on the floor for Ember, who ate, with the same delicate precision as always. As Alex watched, he noticed something new. The creature's eating habits were almost ritualistic, and had always left a small portion of food untouched, as if making some kind of offering. After breakfast, Alex decided to work in his barn, hoping the normal routine would help him think clearly about his situation. Ember followed him outside, but instead of exploring the garden as usual, the creature sat in the middle of the yard and stared at the sky. Alex was replacing a broken harness when he heard Ember make a sound unlike any he had heard before. It was a deep, resonant call that seemed to vibrate through the ground itself. The call lasted for several seconds, and when it ended, the silence that followed felt heavy and expectant. "What was that about?" Alex asked, walking over to his companion. Ember looked up at him, and for the first time since Alex had found the creature, its golden eyes seemed sad. The creature made soft, questioning sounds and tilted its head toward the sky again. Alex was about to go back to his work when something extraordinary happened. A voice spoke inside his head. Not his own thoughts, but a voice that was definitely not human, yet somehow familiar. Alex Carter. He spun around, looking for whoever had spoken, but saw only Ember sitting in the yard. "Alex Carter." The voice came again, clearer this time. "Do not be afraid." Alex stared at Ember, whose golden eyes were now glowing with a soft inner light. "You?" Alex whispered. "You're talking to me?" "Yes," the voice replied, speaking directly into Alex's mind. "I am sorry for the deception, but I had to be certain you could be trusted." Alex's legs felt weak, and he sat down hard on an overturned bucket. "This is impossible." "Many things are possible that your people do not yet understand," Ember's voice said gently. "I have been trying to find the words in your language, learning from your thoughts while you cared for me. Now I can speak to you properly." "What are you?" Alex asked aloud. Ember stood and walked closer to him. "My name is Draconis. I am the third son of Emperor Corinth, ruler of the Obsidian Empire, what you would call a prince of my people." Alex felt the world spinning around him. "Prince? Empire? Are you saying you're from another planet?" "Many planets," Draconis replied. "My people have traveled the stars for thousands of your years. We have built an empire that spans dozens of solar systems, and I am supposed to be on a diplomatic mission to the Outer Rim territories, not crash-landed on a primitive world in the middle of nowhere." "Crash-landed?" Alex repeated. Draconis lowered his head. "My scout ship encountered an unexpected magnetic storm while passing through this system. The ship's navigation failed, and I had no choice but to make an emergency landing. The crash damaged my ship beyond repair and injured me badly. I have been sending distress signals since I recovered enough strength, but I was not sure if they were reaching my people." Alex's mind raced to process this information. "So you're like a dragon? An actual dragon?" "Your mythology has legends of my kind, yes," Draconis replied. "Long ago, some of my people visited your world. The stories they inspired have been passed down through your generations, though much has been changed and forgotten over time. And your family is looking for you? My father will not rest until I am found," Draconis said. And there was something in his mental voice that made Alex think of vast fleets of ships and weapons that could destroy worlds. "The Emperor's personal guard will search every star system until they locate me." As if summoned by those words, a low humming sound filled the air. Both Alex and Draconis looked up to see a formation of aircraft passing overhead. But these weren't like any planes Alex had ever seen. They moved silently and seemed to shimmer and bend light around them. "Scout ships," Draconis said, and Alex could feel excitement and relief in the creature's thoughts. "They have found me at last." The strange aircraft circled overhead for several minutes, then disappeared as suddenly as they had appeared. Draconis lifted his head and made that deep, resonant call again. This time, Alex could feel the sound in his bones, and he somehow understood that it was a signal, a beacon calling out across impossible distances. "How long before they get here?" Alex asked. "Soon," Draconis replied. "Very soon. My people are efficient when it comes to rescuing their own." Alex felt a cold, knot forming in his stomach. "Will they hurt me? For keeping you here, I mean?" Draconis was quiet for a long moment. "I do not know," he admitted finally. "My people are not evil, but they are very protective of the royal family. They may see your actions as kidnapping rather than rescue." "But you'll explain what really happened, right?" Alex asked. "You'll tell them how I helped you?" "Of course," Draconis said. "But Alex, you must understand something about my people. We have conquered many worlds and subjugated many species. We are not accustomed to finding kindness among those we consider inferior beings." The word stung, even though Alex could sense that Draconis didn't mean them cruelly. "Is that what I am to you?" Alex asked. "An inferior being?" Draconis was quiet for so long that Alex thought the creature wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his mental voice was soft and thoughtful. "When I first crashed here, I believed that completely," he admitted. "My people have technology that seems like magic compared to what humans have achieved. We have lived for millennia while your species has barely learned to leave your own planet. I was taught that such differences make us superior." "And now?" Alex asked. "Now I have experienced something my people have forgotten," Draconis said. "You found me broken and helpless, and you could have done anything to me. You could have sold me to your scientists, or caged me as a curiosity, or simply left me to die. Instead, you gave me warmth, food, and safety. You asked for nothing in return. In all my years among the nobility of a galactic empire, I have never encountered such pure kindness." Alex felt warmth spreading through his chest. "You would have done the same for me." "I would like to believe that," Draconis replied. "But I am not certain. My people have grown cold over the centuries. We take what we want and call it destiny. We have forgotten how to show mercy to those weaker than ourselves." The humming sound returned, louder this time. Looking up, Alex saw the sky beginning to darken, not with clouds but with shadows cast by objects too large to comprehend. The shadows moved across the landscape like storm fronts, blotting out the sun. "They're here," Draconis said, and his mental voice carried a mixture of joy and fear. "The Imperial fleet has arrived." Alex looked at his companion, who had been nothing more than a hurt animal just 3 days ago, and now stood revealed as royalty from a civilization that spanned the stars. The creature he had fed warm milk and scrambled eggs was a prince whose family commanded fleets of warships. "What happens now?" Alex asked. Draconis spread his wings, which had grown large and magnificent over the past few days. "Now we discover whether the kindness of one human can change the course of an empire." Above them, the shadows continued to grow larger and darker, and Alex realized that his simple life as a farmer was about to end forever. Whatever came next, there would be no going back to the quiet routine of fence posts and vegetable gardens. The age of first contact was about to begin, and it was starting in his backyard. The first ship materialized like a mountain falling from heaven. Alex watched in terror as something the size of downtown Denver appeared in the sky above his farm, its black hull absorbing sunlight and giving nothing back. The ship hung there, impossibly defying every law of physics Alex thought he understood, casting his entire property into deep shadow. Then came the second ship, and the third, and more until Alex stopped counting and simply stared at the sky in disbelief. Massive vessels appeared one after another, taking positions in perfect formation above his 40 acres of Montana farmland. Each ship was different in design but similar in their overwhelming size and the sense of barely contained power that radiated from their dark hulls. "How many?" Alex whispered. Draconis stood beside him, his wings spread wide and his golden eyes fixed on the fleet above. 6,357 ships, he replied through their mental link. "The Emperor's personal guard. They have come in full force." Alex's legs gave out and he sat down hard on the ground. 6,000 ships? For one person? "I am the Emperor's son," Draconis explained. "And more than that, I carry the genetic codes that allow our people to Communicate with the ancient machines that power our civilization. If I were to die, entire star systems would lose their ability to function. My father would burn 1,000 worlds to ash before he would allow that to happen. On the largest ship, the one hovering directly overhead, lights began to flash in, complex patterns. Draconis watched the display and translated. They are demanding my immediate return. They want to know who has been holding me captive and whether I have been harmed. Captive? Alex said. But I saved your life. They do not know that, Draconis said. From their perspective, a primitive species has somehow captured a member of the imperial family. They are prepared for war. As if to emphasize the point, weapon ports began opening along the hulls of the nearest ships. Alex couldn't see the weapons themselves, but he could feel their presence like cold eyes watching him. The air itself seemed to hum with dangerous energy. In the distance, Alex could hear sirens wailing. Fighter jets appeared on the horizon, racing toward his farm at impossible speeds. Military helicopters followed, and behind them came a convoy of tanks and armored vehicles. The entire might of the United States military was rushing to meet what they clearly saw as an invasion. This is bad, Alex said. Very bad, Draconis agreed. My people have no patience for what they see as inferior species making threatening gestures. And your military has no idea what they are facing. This could become a massacre. The communication lights on the flagship flashed again, faster and more urgently. Draconis lifted his head and made a series of calls in response, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to bend the air around them. What did you tell them? Alex asked. I told them I am unharmed and will return to the ship shortly, Draconis replied. But they want explanations. They want to know why I have been on this planet for 3 days without signaling for rescue. Because you were hurt and unconscious for most of that time, Alex said. Yes, but they also want to know why I am communicating with a human, Draconis said. In their experience, conquered species do not speak directly to members of the royal family. More lights flashed from the flagship, and this time Alex could sense anger in the pattern. Draconis shifted nervously beside him. They are losing patience, the young prince said. General Paraxis commands this fleet, and he is known for solving problems with overwhelming force. He believes that any species capable of hiding me from our sensors for 3 days must possess advanced technology and hostile intentions. Alex looked around at his simple farm with its wooden barn, vegetable garden, and handful of chickens. Does this look like advanced technology to you? Before Draconis could answer, a new voice filled Alex's mind. This one was deeper and colder than the prince's mental voice, carrying with it an authority that made Alex's bones ache. Human creature, the voice said. You will surrender Prince Draconis immediately or your entire settlement will be reduced to atoms. Alex looked up at the ships overhead and shouted, I'm not holding him captive. I saved his life. The cold voice laughed, a sound like ice cracking. Primitive beings always claim innocence when faced with superior force. You will bring the prince to the landing zone we are preparing, or we will take him by force and sterilize this world to prevent future incidents. A section of Alex's pasture began to glow with blue light, as some kind of beam from the flagship turned the grass into perfectly flat metal. Landing pad constructed in seconds, ready to receive shuttles from the fleet above. They're not listening. Alex said desperately to Draconis. General Paraxis has conquered 47 worlds, Draconis replied. He has never encountered a species that did not try to use captured royalty as bargaining chips. He cannot comprehend that you might have helped me out of simple kindness. The first wave of human fighter jets reached Alex's farm and immediately opened fire on the nearest dragon ship. Their missiles and bullets struck the dark hull and simply vanished, absorbed without trace or effect. In response, the ship emitted a pulse of energy that disabled every human aircraft within 50 miles. Jets fell from the sky like stones, their pilots ejecting in panic. Stop! Alex shouted at the sky. Nobody needs to get hurt. But it was too late. Tanks were rolling across his fields, firing shells that bounced harmlessly off the dragon ship's hulls. More energy pulses disabled the tanks, leaving their crews scrambling to escape from dead machines. On both sides, anger was building, and Alex could feel the situation spiraling toward disaster. "I have to do something," Alex said. "There is nothing you can do," Draconis replied sadly. "My people see only a primitive species that has somehow managed to hide their prince from Imperial censors. Your people see an invasion fleet that has already demonstrated overwhelming technological superiority. Both sides are preparing for war." The communication lights on the flagship flashed in an urgent pattern, and General Paraxis's voice returned to Alex's mind. "You have 30 seconds to surrender the prince. After that, we will assume he has been killed and respond accordingly." Alex looked at Draconis, who had grown to his full size during their conversation. The prince was now as large as a horse, with wings that could easily carry him to the ships above. His scales had turned deep black and his golden eyes blazed with inner fire. "You have to go," Alex said, "before people get killed." "If I go now, they will destroy your world anyway," Draconis replied. "General Paraxis believes humans are a threat that must be eliminated. He will not risk leaving potential enemies behind." "Then, what do we do?" Draconis spread his mighty wings and looked up at the fleet of ships that had come to rescue him. "We hope that 3 days of friendship can outweigh 3,000 years of conquest." Above them, weapon ports began to glow with deadly light, preparing to turn Alex's farm and everything around it into a crater of melted glass. Human forces regrouped in the distance, bringing up heavier weapons that would prove just as useless as their first attacks. The countdown had begun, and Alex realized that the next few minutes would determine whether humanity's first contact with an alien civilization ended in friendship or genocide. Everything depended on whether a young dragon prince could convince his people that one human farmer had shown him something more valuable than all the conquered worlds in their empire. Kindness. Simple, genuine human kindness. 10 seconds until the dragon fleet would turn Alex's farm into a smoking crater. 9 seconds until humanity's first contact with an alien civilization became its last. 8 seconds before 6,000 starships demonstrated why the Obsidian Empire had never lost a war. Alex Carter stood in his backyard, looking up at enough firepower to burn continents, and made the most important decision of his life. "I'm going with you," he told Draconis. The dragon prince turned his great head toward Alex, golden eyes wide with surprise. "What? If General Paraxis thinks I'm your captor, then I'll come aboard his ship and explain what really happened," Alex said. "Face to face. Maybe he'll listen." "Alex, no," Draconis said urgently. "You do not understand. If you board that ship as my supposed captor, they will torture you for information before they execute you. My people are not known for their mercy toward enemies. 5 seconds, 4 seconds. Then you'll have to convince them I'm not an enemy," Alex said. He walked toward the glowing landing pad that had appeared in his pasture. "Come on, let's go save both our worlds." Draconis hesitated for one precious second, then leaped into the air with a powerful beat of his wings. He landed beside Alex just as the landing pad began to hum with teleportation energy. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. The world dissolved around them in a swirl of blue light, and suddenly Alex was standing in what could only be described as a throne room made of black crystal and starlight. The ceiling rose hundreds of feet above them, and the walls were covered with displays showing star charts and battle formations. At the center of the room stood a creature that made Draconis look small by comparison. General Pyraxis was easily 20 feet long from nose to tail, with scales that seemed to absorb light and wings that could have covered Alex's entire house. His eyes burned like red suns, and when he spoke, his voice shook the crystal walls. "So," the general rumbled, "this is the primitive creature that dared to hold a prince of the blood hostage." Alex's knees wanted to buckle, but he forced himself to stand straight. "Nobody held anybody hostage, General. I found him injured and helped him get better." Paraxis laughed, a sound like boulders crashing down a mountain. "Helped? You expect me to believe that a being from a species that has barely learned to leave its own world could help a member of the Imperial family?" "It's true," Draconis said, stepping forward. General, this human saved my life when I crashed on his world. He fed me, kept me warm, and protected me from his own kind when they came looking for unusual animals. Impossible, Pyraxis growled. Primitive species always try to exploit royal captures for political advantage. That is the natural order of things. Alex could feel other dragon minds pressing against his thoughts, powerful beings who commanded fleets and armies. They were all watching him, judging him, waiting for him to reveal his true motives for capturing their prince. I didn't know he was a prince, Alex said. I didn't know he was anything special. I just saw a hurt animal and wanted to help. The dragons exchanged glances, and Alex could sense their confusion. This was clearly not how their previous first contacts with other species had gone. You helped him without expecting reward? Asked another dragon, this one smaller than Pyraxis, but still massive by human standards. Of course, Alex said. What kind of person would I be if I left an injured creature to die in a storm? More confused glances. More mental conversations in a language of fire and music that Alex couldn't understand. General, Draconis said, there is something you need to understand about this human. About all humans, perhaps. They are capable of something we have forgotten. What? Pyraxis demanded. Compassion without purpose, Draconis replied. Kindness without reward. Love without conquest. Pyraxis snorted, sending flames dancing around the crystal walls. Nonsense. Every species acts for gain. Every creature serves its own interests first. This is the law of survival. Then explain this, Draconis said. He shared his memories with the assembled dragons, showing them Alex finding him in the storm, feeding him warm milk, sitting by his side through the night. He showed them how Alex had protected him from government agents and refused to give him up even when it would have been easier and safer to do so. The dragons watched in silence as the memories played out. Alex saw understanding begin to dawn in their ancient eyes. He asked for nothing, whispered the smaller dragon. No payment, no favors, no advantage. He gave up his safety to protect someone he barely knew, added another. He risked his life to bring me here rather than let our peoples go to war, Draconis concluded. Tell me, General, when was the last time anyone in our empire did something like that? Pyraxis was quiet for a long time, his red eyes fixed on Alex with an intensity that made the human feel like he was being dissected and analyzed down to his atoms. You truly expected nothing in return for your aid? The general asked finally. I expected him to get better and maybe fly away when he was strong enough, Alex said honestly. That's what wild animals do when you help them. And when you learned he was not a wild animal? When you discovered he was royalty from a star-spanning empire? Alex shrugged. Didn't change anything. He was still my friend. The word friend seemed to hit the dragons like a physical blow. They reared back as if Alex had shouted a curse or revealed some terrible secret. Friend? Pyraxis repeated the word like he was tasting something he had never encountered before. Yes, Alex said. That's what you call someone you care about. Someone you want to help not because you have to, but because their happiness makes you happy. The great dragon was quiet for so long that Alex wondered if he had said something wrong. When Pyraxis finally spoke, his voice was softer than before, filled with something that might have been wonder. We have conquered 1,000 worlds, the general said slowly. We have accumulated wealth beyond measure, knowledge beyond count, power beyond imagination. But when was the last time any of us made a friend? The question hung in the air like incense, heavy with implications that Alex didn't fully understand. Prince. Draconis, Pyraxis said formally. In your opinion, does this human represent a threat to the Empire? No, General, Draconis replied. He represents something far more dangerous than a threat. Alex's heart skipped a beat. Dangerous? Draconis looked at him with those golden eyes full of affection and gratitude. He represents hope. Hope that we might remember what we were before we became conquerors. Hope that power and compassion are not mutually exclusive. Pyraxis stood to his full height and spoke in a voice that carried to every ship in the fleet. By order of General Pyraxis commanding the Imperial Guard, this world is hereby declared a protected territory of the Obsidian Empire. No harm will come to its inhabitants. Furthermore, the human known as Alex Carter is appointed as the first ambassador between his species and ours. Alex felt the floor spin beneath his feet. Ambassador? But I'm just a farmer. You are a teacher, Paraxis corrected. You have taught a prince to remember kindness. Perhaps you can teach an empire to remember its heart. Through the crystal walls, Alex could see the dragon fleet repositioning itself into a protective formation around Earth. Instead of an invasion force, they had become guardians. What happens now? Alex asked. Now we learn from each other, Draconis said. Your people will gain access to technologies that will heal your world and take you to the stars. My people will learn something far more valuable. What's that? Draconis smiled, an expression that looked strange on his dragon features but somehow perfectly natural. They will learn that the strongest empires are not built on conquest, but on friendship. They will learn that true power comes not from taking what you want but from giving what others need. Alex looked around at the assembled dragons, these ancient beings who had ruled the galaxy for millennia, and saw something in their eyes that he recognized from his own mirror every morning when he fed his chickens or tended his garden. The simple satisfaction of doing good for its own sake. Outside, the sun was setting over Alex's farm, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. Tomorrow, representatives from every nation on Earth would come to his little farmhouse to begin the most important negotiations in human history. Scientists would study dragon technology, while dragon scholars learned about human emotions. The universe would never be the same. But tonight, Alex Carter sat in his kitchen with his friend Draconis, sharing a simple meal and talking about the strange paths that had brought them together. A prince and a farmer, a dragon and a human, bound by the oldest magic in the universe, the magic of kindness freely given and gratefully received.